The government said there was no economic case to keep them open. It's offering a £10 million loan in what's been described as a stay of execution. But to qualify for the cash, the unions must agree to the shutdown of the pits at Kellingley in Yorkshire and Thoresby in Nottinghamshire by the autumn of next year, with a loss of up to 1,300 jobs. Ministers are warning that the pits in the UK will close probably as early as next week if miners turn down the loan. Our industry correspondent is John Moylan, and just give us a sense of the state of the industry at the moment.
Well, it's astonishing to think that if you go back to 1945, there were 1 million people employed in the coal industry in Britain, and even as recently as the early 1990s, we had 50 to 60,000 people still involved in the coal industry. Now today there are just a few thousand people in the industry, and so the demise of UK Coal, which has got 2,000 employees, 2,000 workers, is really a very big blow at this time. But this company was at risk of insolvency. It still is at risk of insolvency. If that happens, all 2,000 would lose their jobs immediately. So what has been proposed under this plan is what's been described as a managed closure. Those 2 deep mines will close over a period of 18 months. 1,300 people work in those mines, so it's the bulk of the workers. The business, this operation UK Coal, will effectively be run down. And I'm led to understand that as soon as next month we could hear of something like 500 jobs going in the business.
So how has UK Coal ended up in this situation?
Well, the big picture here obviously is that over the last 3 to 4 decades, it simply became uneconomic to mine coal in Britain, and particularly deep mining. We used to have hundreds of deep mines, and as you've been hearing, we've now got just 3, and 2 of them are now set to close under this plan. It is simply cheaper for power stations to buy coal from abroad, and this problem has accelerated and particularly hit this company UK Coal over the last few years. The shale gas boom in the US, the ripples of that are being felt all around the world. It's displaced a lot of coal that was used in the US, and that's now being exported. Demand for coal in China has also slowed a little. Coal prices have slumped by something like 40% over the past 3 years. Now, UK Coal has been restructured something like 2 or 3 times over the last few years, but because of this big slump in prices, it's in trouble again. And today, the company put out a statement in which it explained some of the pressures that it is now facing.
Following extremely difficult trading conditions, UK Coal has confirmed that it is seeking investment needed to fund a managed rundown of its 2 deep mines. Trading conditions have been difficult due to a continuously strong pound and very low international coal prices. Although our customers are only a few miles from our sites, we have to trade in dollars on the international market, as most of the coal used in the UK is imported. The international coal price remains very low. This is good news for all energy bill payers, but very difficult for coal producers in the UK.
So we've got the government offering this £10 million loan. What will that be for?
Well, as I said, the threat was that the whole thing could go belly up and 2,000 people would lose their jobs. Instead, the hope is that if a deal can be tied up here, and there are still quite clearly some details to be sorted out. The hope is that the deep mines will stay in operation over the next 18 months. There would be a safe, orderly closure of those mines. It will give some of those workers a breathing space to consider other options as well. And it will give the company time to recoup the cash to be able to pay off those loans. Very important though today, the unions are making it clear they think the government has got the wrong move here. They say the energy world is changing fast. We get a lot of our coal from Russia. Today, 40% of the power that we get is generated from coal. We still need coal. They say there was a case here for applying for EU state aid to keep our own industry and to keep our own energy security.
John Moylan. Well, Labour's energy spokesman Tom Greatrix told the Commons that more effort was needed to seek a private buyer for the collieries.
There is now a very short period within which to realistically secure alternative investment to keep the pits open. Could I therefore ask the Minister of State whether he or his officials have had any discussions with the private operator that came forward towards the end of last week suggesting they might be interested to see if we can find a way of securing a commercial future for those pits and those communities?
Well, we can talk now to Philip Pearson. He's Senior Policy Officer at the TUC, the Trades Union Congress. And we've been hearing the government's offering this £10 million loan, but it's contingent on the unions agreeing to the managed closure of these pits. Do you think it's likely that they will agree to that?
Well, good afternoon, Martha.
Good afternoon.
There's no question that the unions will cooperate with the managed closure plan. The problem is, of course, that the government has made completely the wrong move. There are 2 or 3 far better alternatives than this short-term managed closure plan that's on the table.
What would those be?
Well, Tom Greatrex was quoted just now as saying that the government should be looking for private sector partners, and far more work needs to be done in that direction.
But presumably the government have been doing that.
Well, only to some extent. I mean, we've heard of two expressions of interest in the last few days, but also there's the whole question of EU state aid. I mean, we're very concerned that the government really has not pursued this option. Unlike governments in Spain, Germany, Poland and Czechoslovakia, where there are, very serious state aid programmes.
But is the coal industry in this country really feasible in the long run? We were hearing there about this huge slump in the price of coal.
Well, it's very true that there have been movements in world coal prices, and as coal prices go down so that they can recover. And what we're looking for is a period during which we can return this industry to some sense of sanity. The government has clearly made the wrong move. It's providing a returnable £10 million loan on which it will gain interest after 18 months. We don't really see that as being an appropriate and socially just response. There are some 10,000 jobs in UK mining and ancillary industries. A fifth of those now are at serious risk. We're facing the complete closure of UK mining at a time when we're supposed to be developing carbon capture and storage technology for coal. Well, is that going to be relying on Russian coal? And also, why is it that we are importing 20 million tonnes of Russian coal and likely to be importing more now as a result of this decision, when there's these wider concerns about European energy security?
Philip Pearson from the TUC, thank you. Well, let's talk now to Michael Fallon. He's the Minister for Business and Enterprise and also the Minister for Energy. So you heard those criticisms there. First of all, should you have made more efforts to find private investment?
Oh, we've been doing that. The company concerned has been talking to private sector partners since the end of January. There have been a number of parties that did express interest. I met them myself, but in the end, none of them could justify the scale of investment needed, some 70 or 80 million pounds, to keep these mines open beyond autumn 2015.
Well, we had the union saying they just heard, in the past couple of days there was interest.
Well, if there's any interest, nobody is excluding that. The mines will stay open thanks to the rescue package that's being developed. The mines will now stay open until autumn 2015 instead of closing next week. So if there is a private sector partner out there who is prepared to make the huge sums available to invest in the mines to prolong their life beyond 2015, then of course that will still be possible. But at the moment, we haven't seen that kind of proposition.
What about the suggestion there that the government should have applied to the European Union for state aid? Other countries get this money to help their industries.
Well, they get the money to help their industries close, to help their mining industries close. It's not money for investment. It is money towards a closure plan. The loan we're making, offering.
Well, why not get that money then if it's on offer?
Well, it's not European money. What you go to Brussels for is to get state aid approval for money you might want to make available as a government. What we can't see is any value for money case for the taxpayer doing any more than making a loan available, as we've been asked to do as part of this package, to keep the two mines open for another year and a half. There is no value for money case for the taxpayer making any kind of grant beyond that.
Then there is the question of energy security, particularly when we hear about what's happening in Ukraine and conflicts in Russia and so on. Is it wise to be so reliant on coal that's coming from Russia?
Well, we're reliant on the international coal market. Coal is freely traded. Coal comes into this country from the United States, from Colombia, from lots of different countries. There's no shortage of cheap coal.
But a particularly high proportion is coming from Russia, isn't it?
Yes, a lot does come from Russia, but it can come from other countries as well. There's no shortage of coal. Coal is incredibly cheap on the world market, and we can't force our power stations to buy more expensive coal for example, from UK mines. We can't force them to do that.
But wouldn't it be better and more stable for the future of the country if we knew that Britain had its own coal?
Well, we do want to encourage more indigenous sources of energy, and the taxpayer has supported UK mining ever since the last war. There's been a huge amount of government money gone into the mines, but nobody has put forward an economic proposition to extend the life of these mines beyond 2015. That is not the plan that's on the table. The choices we were faced with were either immediate closure as early as tomorrow or early next week, or this plan to conduct the closure in an orderly way, give the mines another year and a half of work, and we were asked whether the government, the taxpayer, should contribute to that, and we've said we're prepared to do that.
Michael Fallon, Business Minister, thank you.